Have you noticed yourself becoming someone you never thought you'd be? Maybe you catch yourself in the mirror and realize you haven't really looked at yourself in weeks. Perhaps your daughter mentions that you've been cancelling plans more often than keeping them. Or maybe a friend gently points out that every conversation seems to circle back to the same old complaints. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone. After 75, many of us slip into patterns that quietly steal our joy, strain our relationships, and diminish the very independence we're trying so hard to protect. Today, I want to talk about 4 habits that creep into our lives so gradually we barely notice them taking root. These aren't dramatic changes. They're subtle shifts in how we think, speak, and interact with the world around us. But make no mistake, these seemingly small behaviors can have profound consequences for your health, happiness, and the connections that make life meaningful. The most important thing I want you to understand is this. Recognizing these patterns is not about judgment or shame, it's about awareness and choice. You have lived over 7 decades on this earth. You've overcome challenges, built relationships, and contributed to the world in ways both large and small. You deserve to live these years with dignity, purpose, and joy. And that starts with understanding what might be holding you back. Let me introduce you to Margaret. At 77, Margaret was sharp, witty, and had a lifetime of stories that could captivate anyone lucky enough to hear them. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Her conversations became dominated by one theme: her body's complaints. Her hip hurt, her back ached, her hands were stiff. The doctors didn't understand. The medications weren't working. Every phone call with her children began with a detailed medical report. Every coffee date with friends turned into an organ recital. At first, her loved ones listened sympathetically. They wanted to support her. But as weeks turned to months and months turned to years, something shifted. Her daughter started screening calls, bracing herself for another litany of ailments. Her friends began suggesting shorter visits or finding excuses to postpone get-togethers. Margaret noticed people pulling away, which made her feel even more alone, and ironically, gave her more reason to focus on her discomfort. Here's the truth about constant complaining that nobody likes to admit. It creates a prison for both you and everyone around you. When you spend your days cataloguing every ache, every pain, every medical appointment, and every disappointment with your health, several things happen. First, the act of repeatedly discussing pain actually intensifies your perception of it. Your brain, hearing you talk about suffering constantly, interprets this as a signal that the threat is serious and ongoing. The pain becomes more central to your identity and experience. Second, it trains your mind to scan continuously for problems. Instead of noticing the warm sunshine, the taste of your morning coffee, or your granddaughter's laugh, your attention becomes fixated on detecting what hurts. You become a fault finder in your own body, and this hypervigilance creates a feedback loop of negativity. Third, and perhaps most devastating, it transforms how others see you. You stop being the full, complex, interesting person you are and become simply the one who's always suffering. People stop asking about your opinions, your memories, or your dreams, because they know the conversation will inevitably return to your physical complaints. They begin to avoid you, not because they don't care, but because they feel helpless and emotionally drained. Now, I'm not suggesting you pretend everything is fine when it isn't. Chronic pain is real, medical challenges deserve acknowledgement. But there's a profound difference between honestly sharing your struggles when appropriate and making them the centerpiece of every interaction. You can acknowledge discomfort without allowing it to consume your entire narrative. Think about what you could talk about instead. The book you're reading, your memories of raising children or building a career, your opinions on current events, questions about other people's lives that show genuine interest. Stories from your past that teach, entertain, or connect. When you consciously redirect your conversations toward these topics, something remarkable happens. You remember that you're more than your aging body. You reclaim parts of yourself that pain had pushed aside. And people respond. They lean in. They engage. They see you again. The second habit that damages lives after 75 is one many people dismiss as unimportant: letting personal care slide. Robert was a proud man his entire life. He'd been a successful engineer, always dressed professionally, and maintained high standards for himself. But after his wife passed away, and he turned 78, something in him seemed to give up. He stopped shaving regularly. His clothes became stained and wrinkled. He'd wear the same outfit for days. His hair grew wild and uncombed. When his son visited and suggested a haircut, Robert snapped that he was too old to care about such trivial things. But here's what Robert didn't understand. Personal care is never trivial. How you present yourself to the world is deeply connected to how you feel about yourself and your place in that world. When you stop bathing regularly, when you wear dirty clothes, when you neglect basic grooming, you're sending yourself a message: I'm not worth the effort. I don't matter anymore. And that message sinks deep into your psyche, reinforcing feelings of worthlessness and hopelessness. The impact extends beyond your own mind. Others notice, even if they don't say anything. They might worry about cognitive decline or depression. They might feel uncomfortable in your presence. Social invitations decrease because people don't know how to address the situation. This leads to more isolation, which deepens depression, which makes self-care feel even more pointless. It's a devastating cycle. Some older adults genuinely struggle with the physical aspects of grooming. Arthritis makes buttoning shirts difficult. Balance problems make showering scary. Vision issues complicate tasks that once were automatic. These are real challenges that deserve real solutions, not judgment. But often, the neglect isn't about ability. It's about will. It's about a loss of purpose that makes these daily rituals feel meaningless. Here's what I want you to understand. Taking care of your appearance is not vanity. It's self-respect. It's a daily practice of affirming your own worth. When you wash your face, comb your hair, put on clean clothes, you're telling yourself, I matter. This day matters. I'm still here, and I'm still living with intention. These small acts are powerful declarations of dignity. And the benefits extend beyond psychology. When you look presentable, you're more likely to leave the house. You're more comfortable having visitors. You engage more confidently with the world. This increased engagement brings opportunities for connection, stimulation, and joy that enrich your life immeasurably. If physical limitations make grooming difficult, ask for help. Occupational therapists can recommend adaptive equipment. Home health aides can assist with bathing. Family members can help with haircuts or nail care. Accepting this assistance isn't admitting defeat. It's ensuring you can continue the self-care practices that maintain your dignity and quality of life. The third habit that pushes people away is stubbornly refusing help. Dorothy lived alone at 81 and prided herself on her independence. When her neighbor offered to bring groceries during a snowstorm, Dorothy insisted she'd manage herself. When her daughter wanted to hire someone to help with house cleaning, Dorothy refused, saying she wasn't helpless. When friends suggested she use a walker after a fall, she declared she wasn't that old yet. Dorothy saw every offer of assistance as an attack on her competence, every suggestion as evidence that people thought she was failing. But here's the paradox. Dorothy's fierce independence was actually creating the dependence she feared. By refusing help with small tasks, she exhausted herself and increased her risk of injury. The stress of trying to do everything alone depleted her energy and darkened her mood. Most painfully, her constant rejection of help hurt the people who cared about her. Her daughter felt pushed away. Her neighbors stopped offering, not because they didn't care, but because repeated rejection felt like hostility. This pattern is remarkably common among older adults. The desire to remain independent is strong and understandable. Nobody wants to be a burden. Nobody wants to lose control over their own life. But somewhere along the way, many people develop a rigid all-or-nothing thinking. Either I do everything myself, or I've lost my independence entirely. This false dichotomy causes tremendous unnecessary suffering. Real independence isn't about refusing all assistance. It's about making choices that preserve your safety, dignity, and ability to engage with life. When you accept help with physically demanding tasks, you conserve energy for activities that bring you joy. When you allow family members to contribute to your well-being, you give them the gift of feeling useful and connected to you. When you use assistive devices, you reduce your risk of falls that could genuinely rob you of independence. Consider what you're actually protecting when you refuse help. Is it truly your independence? Or is it your pride? And if it's pride, is that pride worth the cost of isolation, exhaustion, and strained relationships. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is accept that you need support. Sometimes wisdom means knowing when to let others in. The fourth habit that steals joy from so many older adults is clinging to old grudges and bitterness. Thomas, at 79, still talked about how his business partner betrayed him 30 years ago. He refused to attend family gatherings if his brother would be there because of an argument from decades past. He brought up his ex-wife's failings in every conversation, even though they'd been divorced for 25 years. Thomas wore his resentments like armor, but that armor had become a prison. Bitterness is a poison you drink hoping someone else will suffer. The person you resent has moved on with their life, but you remain trapped in a moment that happened years or even decades ago. You replay the hurt, nurse the anger, and build elaborate justifications for why you're entitled to your rage. Meanwhile, that rage corrodes your peace, damages your health, and colors every present moment with the dark tint of past pain. Research shows that chronic anger and resentment contribute to high blood pressure, heart disease, weakened immune function, and even accelerated cognitive decline. The stress of maintaining grudges literally shortens your life. But perhaps more tragically, it diminishes the life you have left. When you're focused on old wounds, you can't fully appreciate present joys. When you're consumed by who wronged you and how, you miss opportunities for new connections and experiences. Here's the liberating truth about forgiveness. It's not about the other person. It's not about excusing their behavior or pretending the harm didn't happen. It's not about reconciliation or letting someone back into your life. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the exhausting burden of carrying resentment. It's about deciding that your peace matters more than your right to be angry. It's about choosing your own well-being over the satisfaction of nursing a grudge. This doesn't mean the hurt wasn't real or justified. It doesn't mean you have to forget what happened or trust someone who proved untrustworthy. It simply means you stop allowing that past event to occupy space in your present life. You acknowledge what happened, you accept that you can't change the past, and you choose to release the emotional grip it has on you. Some people find that writing letters they never send helps process these feelings. Others benefit from talking with a counselor or trusted friend. Some find peace through prayer or meditation. The method matters less than the intention. To let go of bitterness and reclaim your emotional energy for things that actually enrich your life. So, what can you do if you recognize these patterns in yourself? The first step is exactly what you're doing right now: becoming aware. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. If you've been complaining constantly, start practicing gratitude. Each day, identify 3 things that went right, that brought you comfort, or that you appreciated. Share these in conversations instead of leading with your ailments. If you've neglected your appearance, set small, achievable goals. Perhaps you commit to showering and dressing each morning, even if you're not leaving the house. Maybe you schedule a haircut, or ask someone to help you organize your closet, so getting dressed feels easier. These small acts of self-care can dramatically shift how you feel about yourself. If you've been refusing help, practice saying yes. Start small. Let someone carry your groceries. Accept a ride instead of driving in bad weather. Allow family to help with yard work or home repairs. Notice how it feels to receive care. Notice how it impacts your relationships when you let people show their love through action. If you're holding grudges, begin the work of forgiveness. You don't have to do it perfectly or all at once. Start by acknowledging that holding on to anger isn't serving you. Consider what you're sacrificing by maintaining these resentments. Write about your feelings. Talk to someone who can help you process them. Take small steps toward letting go. The beautiful truth is this: it's never too late to change. Your brain remains capable of forming new patterns. Your relationships can be revitalized. Your daily experience can shift from grey to vibrant. These changes don't require dramatic interventions or perfect execution. They simply require awareness, intention, and the willingness to try something different. You have lived too long and overcome too much to spend your remaining years trapped in patterns that diminish you. You deserve conversations that nourish rather than drain. You deserve to look in the mirror and feel proud of the person looking back. You deserve relationships built on connection rather than obligation. You deserve peace that comes from releasing ancient hurts. Starting today, I encourage you to choose one small change. Perhaps you'll redirect one conversation toward a positive topic. Maybe you'll take extra care with your appearance tomorrow morning. You might accept help you'd normally refuse. Or you could take the first step toward forgiving someone who hurt you long ago. Watch what happens when you make these shifts. Notice how people respond. Pay attention to how you feel. Celebrate the small victories, because they matter more than you might think. Each positive change builds on the last, creating momentum toward a richer, more connected, more joyful life. Your later years can be a time of depth, wisdom, and meaningful connection. They can be marked by dignity, purpose, and peace. But that outcome isn't automatic. It requires conscious choices about how you speak, how you care for yourself, how you relate to others, and how you carry your history. Make those choices deliberately. Choose words that build bridges instead of walls. Choose self-care that honors your worth. Choose connection over isolation. Choose peace over bitterness. You've earned the right to live fully, joyfully, and authentically. Don't let unconscious habits steal that from you. Recognize the patterns that no longer serve you and have the courage to change them. Your life, your relationships, and your own heart will thank you. The time you have is precious. Use it wisely. Live it fully. And remember that every single day, you get to choose who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world. Make that choice count.